All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to this comprehensive deep dive, where we are going to completely demystify the process of orchid care. We're taking the best scientific facts and advice from expert growers like the American Orchid Society and breaking them down into super simple, actionable steps so your orchids can absolutely thrive at home. Now, orchids are undeniably some of the most stunning flowers on the planet. But if you've ever watched a beautiful store-bought orchid slowly wilt, lose its flowers, and ultimately die on your kitchen counter, trust me, you are not alone. Today, we're fixing that problem permanently by figuring out what these amazing plants actually want. We've structured this overview into 6 logical steps. We'll cover everything from their wild origins and choosing a healthy plant to setting up the perfect environment, watering, repotting, rescuing sick plants, and finally, the secret to triggering massive, beautiful blooms.
Section 1. Nature and choosing an orchid.
Let's start with a massive paradigm shift. The most popular home orchids, like the Phalaenopsis, are epiphytes. What does that mean? Well, in the wild tropical rainforests, they naturally grow attached to the bark of trees, high up in the canopy. They get their moisture from the air and frequent rain showers. They literally hate regular soil because it suffocates their roots. Think of them as air plants. This perfectly explains how you should choose an orchid at the store. Ignore those pretty flowers for a second and look straight at the clear plastic pot. If you see firm, plump, silvery gray to green roots, you've got a strong, healthy plant. But if you see brown, mushy, hollow roots that smell like mold, leave it there. That root system is already dying. Section 2. The ideal growing environment. So, we have a healthy plant. How do we replicate its jungle habitat in your living room? This table is basically your gold standard cheat sheet. Balancing these 4 factors is the secret sauce used by expert greenhouse growers like the Collins family. You want 12 to 14 hours of bright but indirect light, warm days, pleasantly cool nights, and decent humidity. That is the ultimate recipe for a happy epiphyte. And what's really fascinating here is that your plant's leaves are basically a diagnostic dashboard. If the leaves develop a reddish tint or yellow burn spots, the light is way too intense. But if they're very dark green, droopy, and the plant refuses to bloom, it is literally starving for light. You need to move it. Section 3. Proper watering and feeding. Let's talk about watering, which is the #1 cause of orchid death. We use the soak and drain method because it perfectly mimics a brief, heavy tropical rainstorm. Soak the pot in lukewarm water for 5 to 10 minutes so the roots can drink their fill. But here is the absolutely crucial part. Let the excess water drain completely. Orchids hate sitting in a puddle. It guarantees root rot. Generally, you'll want to wait 5 to 12 days between waterings, but don't just follow a calendar. Let the weight of the pot and the color of the roots be your ultimate guide. If the pot is light as a feather and the roots look silvery, it's thirsty. If it's heavy and the roots are green, just leave it alone. When it comes to feeding, orchids are basically the snails of the plant world. They grow incredibly slowly, so they need very little fertilizer. Use highly diluted solutions. What's super important to remember is that overfeeding is actually much more dangerous than underfeeding. If you see brown, burnt tips on the roots, you are frying them with too much fertilizer. Always water the plant first before adding any food. Section 4. Repotting. When and how.
Eventually, the organic bark in your pot is going to break down into a fine, muddy humus. This usually happens every 1.5 to 2 years. This mush blocks airflow and literally suffocates the roots, depriving them of the oxygen they desperately need. So, repotting is an absolute must. When you do repot, remember, absolutely no regular potting soil. You want to use things like fir bark or tree fern fiber to maintain that highly porous, oxygen-rich environment. Grab a clear pot with plenty of ventilation holes and maybe toss some small pebbles at the bottom for drainage. Oh, and a quick pro tip, only repot after the flowers have completely dropped so you don't stress the plant.
Section 5. Rescuing sick plants. But what if you've made a mistake and your plant is already dying? Don't panic. Here's your emergency rescue protocol. Take the plant out, remove all the old substrate, and use sterilized scissors to cut away only the soft, brown, mushy roots. Treat the cuts with a fungicide and repot it in fresh, completely dry bark. It's like a surgical intervention that stops the rot in its tracks.
And here's a fantastic tip from the experts. If you ever divide a large orchid, never repot the bottom leafless section. The shock of a new pot will kill it instantly. Instead, just leave it alone in its old pot, reduce watering, and give it time. Eventually, it will activate a dormant bud and sprout a brand new baby orchid.
Section 6. The secrets to abundant blooming.
Finally, let's talk about the ultimate reward, triggering those spectacular, long-lasting blooms. Did you know that dropping your room's nighttime temperature by exactly 9 to 12 degrees Celsius is the magic key? This temperature drop creates a mild environmental stress that mimics the changing seasons, literally commanding your orchid to push out a new flower spike.
Orchids also actually love feeling a little bit cramped in their pots. If you combine a tight space with those chillier nights, plenty of filtered light, and a healthy root system, you are guaranteed a massive bloom cycle. The plant simply has no other choice but to flower.
To sum it all up, orchids really aren't difficult. They're just different. Now, keep in mind that every home has a unique microclimate, so you might need to adapt these tips slightly and always consult further resources or professionals if you run into specific issues. But are you ready to stop treating your orchid like a regular houseplant and start treating it like the brilliant jungle survivor it truly is? So, which orchid are you going to rescue first?